Those who know the right questions must reach those asking the wrong ones, and sometimes even the lost. I protect my identity because truth has a body count. Welcome to the Anarchist File. He's not angry because he hates women. He's angry because nobody told him how to be a man. He's scrolling at 2 a.m., red light from his phone burning his eyes, watching clips of rich, sharp-jawed men in Bugattis talking about discipline, respect, and building empires. He laughs at first, then he listens. Because deep down, it sounds like the only sermon he's heard in years. That makes sense. The schools gave him slogans. The culture gave him shame. The internet gave him a blueprint. That's the Alpha Rebellion. It's not about misogyny, it's about starvation. A generation of boys raised without fathers, without mentorship, without glory. They were told they're the problem, told their instincts are dangerous, told the best man is a neutered one, and now they're hungry for something, anything that tells them they're not broken for wanting to lead, conquer, and protect. So they found it online. For every influencer shouting about grind sets and Sigma energy, there are millions listening, not because it's edgy, but because it feels real. Because finally, someone speaks to them like they matter. The world told them to apologize for their masculinity. The internet told them to weaponize it. And somewhere in between, a new generation of men started, mutating, half philosopher, half outlaw. Fully aware that everything traditional masculinity once built is now collapsing. They're not stupid. They see the lies. They see women exhausted from being told to have it all. They see men destroying themselves in silence. They see families disintegrating, marriages failing, and fathers replaced by algorithms. They see a system that taxes ambition, mocks faith, and rewards victimhood, and they're done playing nice. That's why this alpha movement exists. Not because of one man or one podcast. Because every young man with a pulse feels the absence of leadership like a phantom limb. He doesn't want to be a tyrant. He wants to be competent. He wants respect, not pity. Purpose, not therapy. Power, not permission. The media calls it toxic. But what's actually toxic is a culture that tells men they are invaluable only when they are silent, submissive, and sterile. This new wave isn't about becoming cavemen, it's about reclaiming polarity. Masculine and feminine were never enemies. They were design. You destroy one, the other malfunctions. We've spent decades trying to turn polarity into parity, and now everyone's miserable. Women are anxious and alone. Men are broke and bitter. Kids are medicated and confused. The pendulum had to swing back, and when it didn't come from universities or think tanks. It came from YouTube clips, gym basements, group chats, Discord servers, digital monasteries, where young men trade ideas, not feelings. Where words like honor and discipline are sacred, but beneath the memes, there's something serious happening. Civilization runs on male, energy-directed, disciplined, dangerous in the right proportions. When that energy has no outlet, it turns inward. It becomes depression. It becomes addiction. It becomes nihilism. The Alpha Rebellion is that energy finding oxygen again. It's messy, it's loud, it's often immature, but it's real, and it's growing faster than any institution can control. Because when every legacy system, church, state, school fails to initiate boys into manhood, the internet will do it for them. That's where we are. A 19-year-old kid in his bedroom learning masculinity from a millionaire in Dubai because his father never learned it from his own. A generation rebuilding manhood from fragments, Greek philosophy mixed with gym culture, capitalism mixed with scripture, memes mixed with Marcus Aurelius. It's chaotic, but chaos is the beginning of creation. Every empire starts with disobedience. And this rebellion, like all the others, was born from disrespect toward mediocrity, toward modernity, toward the cultural castration of men. That's not hate, that's hunger. And the establishment can mock it all they want. But the truth is, young men aren't listening to them anymore. They're listening to each other, and that's what scares them most. Because when men start talking again, really talking, the empire trembles. Every generation of men inherits a war it didn't start. The last one fought for freedom. This one fights for meaning, and you can tell the difference in how they talk. The old men had purpose written on their faces, lines from labor, eyes from battle, posture from burden. They didn't whine. They didn't journal. They just did. But the modern man, he's been told to feel everything and believe in nothing. To be open, but never grounded. To speak about his pain, but never act on it. It's a psychological cage built out of slogans. Don't be controlling. Don't be too ambitious. Don't make her uncomfortable. Don't be intimidating. And beneath every don't, there's the same message. Don't lead. Don't assert. Don't embody what built the world. That's how we got here. A society allergic to masculine certainty. Where leadership is labeled as patriarchy, ambition is greed, self-reliance is selfishness. The culture despises the very traits that made it possible. The result? A generation of men with no archetypes, raised by screens, sedated by convenience, softened by safety. They can order food, attention, and validation all from their phones. But ask them who they are, and you'll get silence, because they've never been forced to find out. Men don't grow through comfort, they grow through resistance. But the world has made resistance optional. There are no wars to fight, no frontiers to conquer, no real rites of passage. Just participation trophies and dating apps. That's why so many young men are angry. They were promised greatness, then handed comfort. They were told they could be anything, then mocked for wanting to be something traditional. They were told to follow their passion, then laughed at when it didn't pay rent. So they turn to the internet where at least someone still speaks the language of conquest. And it's not that they want to dominate women or flex online. What they really want is respect. They want weight to their words again. They want to live in a world where effort means something, where discipline gets rewarded, where power is noble instead of villain. The modern world can't offer that. So they're building their own. You can see it forming everywhere. Content creators, communities, mentors, even private schools for lost boys run by ex-soldiers and entrepreneurs. Parallel systems of male mentorship outside the institutions that abandon them. It's primitive, sure, but it's also prophetic, because this rebellion isn't ideological. It's evolution correcting itself. Civilization is built on masculine order and feminine nurture. One provides direction, the other provides depth. One builds the house, the other makes it home. Destroy that balance, and you get chaos, disguised as progress. You get kids raised by tablets, men afraid of commitment, women burned out pretending to be men. No one's winning, everyone's tired, and the modern elite likes it that way. A population of atomized, confused men is easy to manage. They won't build, they won't organize, they won't lead, they'll just scroll. That's the real war. Not left versus right, not man versus woman, but sovereign men versus systems that depend on weakness. Because when men remember what they are, builders, defenders, visionaries, they stop being customers. They stop chasing validation. They start creating alternatives. That's why this movement terrifies the establishment. It's decentralized masculinity. No leader, no headquarters, no party line. Just millions of men rediscovering what their grandfathers already knew. The world dosanti give you power. You take it by earning it, and that's dangerous. Because if a generation of men stop outsourcing their self-worth to systems that hate them, those systems collapse. The debt-driven economy, the social media dopamine farm, the ideological echo chambers, all of it depends on male submission. On men who apologize for wanting to win. So they shame the winners. They criminalize aggression. They call ambition privilege. They say protectiveness is control. They turn fathers into accessories, husbands into punchlines, and leaders into villains. And the response millions of young men saying, no. Not publicly, not loudly, just quietly opting out, quitting jobs that drain them, rejecting marriages designed to bankrupt them, training their bodies, learning finance, reading philosophy, building wealth, building freedom. That's the rebellion. It's not political, it's primal. It's men refusing to be disposable, refusing to apologize for their strength, refusing to serve systems that reward weakness. And it's only beginning. Because every time the mainstream mocks masculinity, they mint 1,000 new rebels. Every time they censor, shame, or cancel, they amplify the message. The system fears men who think for themselves. That's why this isn't just a movement. It's a correction, a recalibration of what masculinity means in an age that tried to neuter it. It's not about alpha posturing or endless grind. It's about sovereignty. The kind of power that can't be given, only taken through clarity and work. The kind of strength that doesn't need to yell because it doesn't need permission. The truth is simple. Men are not broken. The system is. And every man who decides to fix himself instead of blaming the world, chips away at that system's foundation. One business at a time, one body at a time, one family at a time. Because history has always belonged to the men who stopped waiting for instructions. Every era has its archetype. The warrior, the merchant, the priest, the king, each defined by the world it inherited, each adapted to survive it. The industrial era produced the worker, the information age produced the manager. But what does the digital age produce? It produces the influencia, hollowed-out hybrid of salesman and saint, charisma without character, audience without accountability. And that's the paradox every modern man is waking up to. In a world where everyone's performing masculinity, no one's living it. That's why the alpha archetype exploded online. It's not just about dominance. It's about authenticity. In a world addicted to signaling, it's about bringing back the ancient masculine ideal rooted not in emotion, but in execution. The ability to command chaos. To embody clarity when everyone else is melting down. The irony is that this archetype isn't new. It's ancient. The Spartans had it, the samurai had it, the Roman centurions, the medieval knights, the entrepreneurs of the Industrial Revolution. They all followed the same unwritten code: courage, discipline, ownership, restraint. Those are the 4 pillars every empire was built on. And now, they're being rebuilt online by kids in hoodies, quoting Epictetus between gym sets. That's not regression. That's remembrance. Because deep down, every man wants the same thing. To be someone other men respect and women trust. To be dangerous without cruelty. Powerful without arrogance. Grounded without submission. That S the balance our culture erased, and that S why so many men are trying to resurrect it. They don't see wealth as greed. They see it as proof. Proof that they can build value in a world that rewards victimhood. They don't see stoicism as repression. They see it as stability in a system that profits off chaos. They don't see hierarchy as tyranny. They see it as natural law, the acknowledgement that not all men are equal, and pretending otherwise destroys ambition. Because equality of opportunity is moral, equality of outcome is poison, and that's where the alpha rebellion draws its line. This new masculinity rejects the collective guilt of modern ideology. It doesn't apologize for winning. It doesn't pretend all opinions have equal weight. It understands that competence is virtue, that wealth is freedom, that leadership is love because it's sacrifice in motion. These men aren't chasing power for its own sake. They're chasing sovereignty. The ability to wake up and know the day belongs to them, not to an employer, not to a politician, not to a partner who resents their ambition. Sovereignty is the new masculinity. And that's why the internet, for all its noise, has become a digital dojo for men rediscovering what it means to lead. There's no monastery anymore, there's no Spartan training ground, but there's Wi-Fi, books, gym memberships, and time. That's all you need. Every scroll through a feed is a test. Will you consume or create? Will you react or respond? Will you be a slave to stimulation or a sovereign over it? That's the game every man is playing, whether he admits it or not. Because the modern battlefield isn't physical, it's psychological. It's not swords and shields. It's attention and willpower. Every man who builds focus in a world designed to break it is already a warrior. The new masculine archetype is not the corporate executive or the academic intellectual. It's the capitalist, monk-disciplined like a soldier, free like an entrepreneur, detached like a philosopher. He doesn't live for applause. He lives for impact. And that's what terrifies the system. Because once you combine discipline with capital, composure with charisma, you create something ungovernable. A man who doesn't depend on the world can't be manipulated by it. That's not a citizen. That's a sovereign. And sovereignty is contagious. You see it in men building businesses instead of resumes. You see it in men reading philosophy instead of propaganda. You see it in fathers homeschooling their kids. In tradesmen leaving corporate jobs. In investors building parallel economies. They're not just reacting. They're refounding civilization. Every generation that forgets masculinity must rediscover it through rebellion, and that rediscovery never looks polite. It looks arrogant. It looks dangerous. It looks toxic. But it's not toxicity. It's testosterone finding a purpose again. Because you can't suppress nature forever. You can sedate it, distract it, guilt it, but eventually, it pushes back. The modern alpha is that pushback personified. Not a bully, a builder, not a tyrant, a teacher, not a narcissist, a necessary correction. And yes, there will be overcorrections. There always are. Some men will mistake hardness for strength, money for virtue, attention for leadership. But even that chaos is preferable to the passivity we had before. Because from that chaos, order will reemerge. You can already see the hierarchy forming quietly. The strong attract the strong. The disciplined find each other. The builders network. The thinkers gather. They're building a masculine meritocracy, not on paper, but in practice. No diversity quotas. No feelings-based promotions. Just results. And that's how civilizations reboot. Not through elections. Through excellence. Through men who stop apologizing for being men and start acting like they were built to lead again. When polarity collapses, everything breaks. That's the quiet crisis no one talks about. The masculine and feminine used to orbit each other, different forces, same gravity, now they compete. Masculinity was told to soften, femininity was told to harden, and both ended up miserable. You can see it everywhere. Dating, marriage, family, even art. Women were told independence was happiness, but it came packaged with loneliness. Men were told emotional openness was liberation, but it came packaged with weakness. Both sexes got sold a lie. That sameness is fairness. But sameness kills attraction. Men and women were never designed to mirror each other. They were meant to complement each other. Two halves of one structure. Destroy that structure and everything collapses. Desire, respect, family, culture. The alpha archetype terrifies people because it restores that structure. Because a confident, competent, unapologetic man doesn't need approval to exist. He doesn't beg for partnership, he attracts it. He doesn't compromise his polarity to make someone else comfortable. He amplifies it. That's why modern feminism hates him. Not because he's oppressive, but because he's immune. He doesn't need their validation. He doesn't play by their social contracts. He's not afraid of rejection because he's already And a self-sufficient man can't be controlled through guilt, sex, or shame. So he becomes the villain by default. Every movie mocks him. Every talk show psychoanalyzes him. Every article tries to debunk him. Yet every woman still secretly looks for him. Because deep down, women don't want equality, they want polarity. They want to feel safe, to be led by strength, not dominated by insecurity. But modern culture shames that instinct too. It tells women that needing a man is weakness. So now you have generations of women torn in half, yearning for masculine leadership while being trained to resent it. They want protection, but call it control. They want direction, but label it patriarchy. They want the alpha, but only if he apologizes for being one. In men, they've adapted. Some retreat, completely digital hermits, MGTOW, the leave me alone crowd. Others, double down, discipline, wealth, status, detachment. Both are reactions to the same thing, the death of mutual respect between the sexes. Because relationships used to be a partnership. Now they're a negotiation. Love has become a contract between two people who don't trust each other. Courts turn marriages into leverage. Algorithms turn dating into auctions. Women are optimizing for attention. Men are optimizing for efficiency. It's not romance, ETS economics. And that's why the alpha rebellion isn't anti-woman. It's because the system profits from broken homes. From lonely men. From single women. From fatherless kids who will grow up desperate for identity. The market has replaced the family as the center of loyalty, and both genders are paying for it. That's what men are waking up to. They're not bitter because women are independent. They're bitter because independence replaced intimacy. They not angry that women work, they angry that success became a scoreboard instead of a shared mission. They not resentful that women have options, they resentful that loyalty no longer means anything in a marketplace where everyone's replaceable. That's not misogyny, that's economics colliding with biology. Because no matter how modern we pretend to be, polarity always returns. Biology always wins. The woman still wants strength. The man still wants peace. That's not politics, it's physics. So the question isn't how to end the battle of the sexes, it's how to rebuild mutual respect between forces that were never meant to compete. That's what the new masculinity is quietly doing, rebuilding the masculine frame first, so the feminine has something real to respond to again. You can't negotiate polarity, you can only embody it. The alpha doesn't argue about gender roles on Twitter. He doesn't complain about dating apps. He doesn't chase chaos. He selects clarity. He builds a life so structured that it filters chaos out automatically, because the truth is, the masculine docent attract the feminine by convincing her it attracts her, by stabilizing the world around her. When you become older, you stop needing to persuade anyone to follow. And women feel that instantly. It's not about height, looks, or money, it's about presence, command, the quiet certainty that you're not another boy looking for permission. That's why women are drawn to high-value men, even when they claim to hate them. Because deep down, security feels better than equality. It always has. And that's what drives the panic. Because if men keep building strength and sovereignty, they no longer fit into a society built on dependency. They start opting out of bad relationships, out of corporate systems, out of ideologies, out of anything that dilutes their agency. And when enough men do that, the culture shifts. The masculine stops chasing approval and starts shaping reality again. It doesn't scream. It doesn't beg, it just builds. The alpha rebellion isn't a backlash, it's a renaissance. A correction of polarity, a restoration of balance. It's not men versus women, it's men becoming men again, so women can stop pretending they have to be. That's the part no one says out loud. Women want this correction too. They're exhausted. They don't want to lead, compete, or carry everything. They want to trust again, but they can't trust weak men. And modernity mass produces weak men. So when a strong one appears, they test him. Not because they hate him, but because they hope he's real. And when he doesn't flinch, doesn't fold, doesn't apologize, they relax. That's not control. That's chemistry. The masculine and feminine aren't enemies. Their energy flows. And for the first time in decades, the current is shifting back to its natural direction. Every civilization dies the same way, soft men pretending they're evolved. They trade courage for comfort, faith for feelings, strength for slogans. And then they wonder why the walls fall. That's where we are now. The West is bloated on safety. Our men are medicated, our women are miserable, and our children are raised by screens that teach them everything except meaning. The masculine rebellion? ISNT, some online fatted S? The immune system of a dying culture fighting back. Because if the modern world is built on dependency, the masculine spirit was built to escape it. You can feel that tension everywhere. The 20-year-old starting a business from his phone. The 30-year-old quitting corporate life to build with his hands again. The father homeschooling his kids because he refuses to outsource their souls to the state. These men aren't rebels for shock value. They're rebels because survival demands it. Freedom isn't inherited anymore. It's earned. And the new masculine movement, this so-called alpha, renaissances, simply men remembering what made freedom possible in the first place. Ownership, competence, hierarchy, risk, the willingness to fight for what's theirs instead of begging for permission. That's what terrifies the institutions, when men stop asking. Because once a man realizes he doesn't need the system loses control. The taxes, the propaganda, the social contracts, they all depend on men believing they're powerless. But the truth is, men built the machine. They can unplug it whenever they want. That's why they push shameless policy, toxic masculinity, male privilege, patriarchal oppression. Those are not critiques, they're containment strategies. They exist to guilt men out of their power, but guilt only works on the uninformed. And the modern man is no longer uninformed. He's reading again. He's training again. He's investing again. He's networking horizontally instead of begging vertically. He's finding meaning and responsibility instead of identity politics. That's the masculine rebirth. The return of responsibility is glory. Because deep down, every man wants to be king, not to rule others, but to rule himself. His habits, his emotions, his finances, his legacy. That's the real throne, not social dominance. The weak man runs from pain. The strong man refines it. The highest man directs it. That's the hierarchy. That's how civilizations rise, when men reforge their pain into purpose. And when enough men do that, everything changes. The economy shifts. The family returns. The culture hardens. Beauty becomes sacred again. Chaos loses its grip. Because order is contagious, and men are the vessels that carry it forward. The masculine ideal is not oppression, it's protection. It's service through strength. The man who owns himself doesn't enslave others. He shields them. He builds borders around what's worth preserving. That's what people don't understand about the alpha ideal. It's not about superiority, it's about stewardship. The highest value man doesn't need to dominate. He already controls what matters. His time, his attention, his output, his soul. That's what modern society lost when it made masculinity taboo. Because without strong men, there is no civilization. Only management. Only noise. Only people waiting for someone else to fix it. But no one's coming. There's no savior, no party, no politician that's going to restore order. The only thing that can rebuild what has been lost is men who decide to become dangerous again, but in service of something greater than themselves. Men who fight not for attention, but for alignment. Men who understand that wealth means nothing without wisdom, that strength means nothing without restraint, that dominance means nothing without duty. That's the real masculinity renaissance. Not a return to caveman brutality, but a forward evolution where men unite competence with compassion, power with peace, capitalism with honor. Because that's the end game of this rebellion. Sovereignty, not savagery. The masculine ideal the system fears isn't the violent brute, it's the calm builder. The man who can walk away from the chaos, construct his own empire, and feed everyone else while doing it. That's power. That's legacy. And that's what this generation of men is rediscovering, that their ancestors didn't build kingdoms by apologizing for their ambition. They built them by mastering it. That's the difference between the masculine and the modern. The modern consumes. The masculine creates. The modern complains. The masculine commands. The modern blames. The masculine builds. You can hear it in their voices now, this quiet, rising confidence. A man who trains his body, controls his money, leads his family, and speaks the truth, doesn't need permission to exist. He is permission. He's what comes after the empire collapses. Because when the dust settles, and it will, the men left standing will be the ones who rejected comfort for conviction. The ones who worked in silence while the rest of the world debated feelings. The ones who chose clarity over chaos, creation over consumption, control over compliance. They'll be the architects of the next age. And their children will look back and realize it wasn't rebellion, it was restoration. The restoration of honor, the hierarchy, of God, of truth, of the timeless order that built everything we once called Western civilization. Because no matter how modern the world becomes, it will always need men who can hold the line. Men who can carry the weight. Men who can say no when everyone else says yes. The Alpha Rebellion isn't the end of masculinity, it's the beginning of its refinement. A generation of men awakening from sedation. Remembering that freedom isn't a feeling, it's a duty. That discipline isn't oppression, it's liberation. That control isn't cold, it's divine. And when enough men live like that, empires don't fall. They rise again. The story isn't over. This was the Anarchist File.